Hello everybody, Megazard here, back at it again to give y'all another very exciting video. And yes, I think just enough amount of Ride of Time has managed to pass on to where now I feel like I can give my overall honest thoughts and review for the Nintendo Switch 2. Because look here, I've been playing the heck out of this system ever since it managed to launch, and I managed to pick this shiny new system up on my midnight launch, where it's like, you know what, it's about time for me to give my honest thoughts and reviews up on this system though, because everything from the new Joy-Con 2s to the brand new Switch 2 Pro controller, that new camera feature and stuff, the whole thing with the C button chat and stuff, and then the overall performances on a lot of the Switch 1 games that managed to get free upgrades and stuff like that, and just obviously, you know, Mario Kart World as well. I already put my Mario Kart World review out there. There's a card in the quarter for that if you want to check that out though. But this will be talking about everything else encompassing the system and everything else in between. So there's a lot to go ahead and talk about. So we'll go ahead and jump up in this mess though. But if you hadn't already done so, make sure you're going to hit that like button, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and that bell to stay up to date on all things video game related I feel like talking about and discussing. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump straight up into this video. The Nintendo Switch 2. Now, it's been a long running start to where we finally managed to get this system in our hands. I remember back in the day with all of those different rumors and leaks, we were trying to cover all of this stuff up. I mean, what could be the CPU, the graphics behind it and stuff, whether or not it was going to be able to output 4K, whether or not it was going to use some artificial upscaling or whatever though. But we managed to finally get this game system in our hands and just holding the system. I just like the fact of how much bigger it is. Like these Joy-Con 2s, they're significantly much bigger than just the standard Joy-Cons that we managed to have on the Switch 1. And I like how you just can pop it out and then boom, you just got the controller right there. I mean, it even fits my hand just a little bit better. Like shoot, I remember playing ARMS on the Switch 1 and you know, this Joy-Con was kind of small, but now it kind of feels just the right amount of size to where it fits my big old hands. I mean, some people might have some smaller hands though. I got some big old hands. So I really appreciate these Joy-Cons just being that much bigger though. And then on top of it, just having the screen being that much bigger as well. It's significantly bigger than the OLED Nintendo Switch model that it is right now though. And I just really like this system quite a bit. Like the fact that the screen itself is now 1080, and on top of that, it's 120 hertz. Like I wasn't necessarily Nintendo to go out their way. Now, granted, how many games will truly be 120 hertz? We do know about Metroid Prime 4. Technically, Nintendo Welcome Tour also supports that as well. But how many more we're going to get outside of that? Only time is going to be able to tell, though. But the fact you got a screen that's that capable right here, I wasn't really expecting that from Nintendo. I was just expecting the bare minimum 1080. But regardless, it's not an OLED screen. It is an LCD screen. But regardless, though, like the screen still looks beautiful and stuff like that. It does support HDR as well, if you can manage to configure your settings just the right way, though. But overall, the screen is really impressive, and it just feels right just to be able to hold this thing up. I mean, yes, you don't have like dedicated grips on the back, like something like equivalent to like an Asus ROG Ally or something like that, though. But I don't know, with the system just being that much more bigger, it just kind of fits my hands just a little bit better, if I do say so myself. Then obviously that's just it on the handheld side, though. Obviously, there's a whole component when you do dock it into the TV as well though, because it's interesting how you have that little bit of a fan that's actually built into the dock, because I guess when you dock it and now you're able to do stuff up to 4K 60 in dock mode, that's crazy in and of itself just to think about it though, because like you don't really expect too much from Nintendo in terms of graphics departments though. But I think with their connection between Nintendo and Nvidia, like they had some stuff cooking, at least with this artificial upscaling and stuff like that. So regardless, you don't have to be like the same tech guru to know like this is just gonna fit the casual audience quite well, where it's like you just say 4K, it just supports 4K though. I mean, some games they're all going to run up to 1440p, as you can kind of see in your settings, depending on, you know, what kind of monitor or TV you have this hooked up to. But some games run up to 1440, some games do run all the way up to 4K and stuff. And if you have a compatible monitor or TV, you can even do the 120 hertz mode up in that if the game happens to support it though. So you got a lot of different options, a lot more than just your standard 1080, 60, or a lower resolution. I don't know why you want to mess with it on the original Nintendo Switch 1 though. So, you know, they got a little bit of something out there for everybody to tailor suit their needs. I mean, shoot, I went so much out of the way with my Nintendo Switch 2 experience where my TV, it still doesn't support 4K or whatever. It's just 1080, 60 frames per second. But I do have a monitor over here that I'm actually recording this video on that does full 4K up to 100 44 hertz. So I went out and bought a secondary dock just so I can plug it over here where I have my PC set up though. So if a game does support 4K or if it does support 120 hertz, so I'll be ready for Metroid Prime 4 when that finally happens to drop out on the system though. I can take full advantage over that though. So that's just really cool to see though. But then going back on those Joy-Cons though, you know, you technically, one of the new gimmicks for this thing is the mouse mode. I think it's between that and the C button. But that mouse mode, though, it's nice. It works fine and stuff. Like, you can put the little grip on the side, so that way you got the little strap that goes on your actual wrist, and you're able to, you know, move it around the surface, though. Honestly, I hadn't really ran into too many games that actually use and support that. The only thing really I've been able to do that with is just like the home menu screen. You can literally use it to, like, you know, scroll through all the different games and stuff, navigate your menu settings and stuff like that, though. I do like how it's pretty simplistic in nature. Like, you can put it on your lap and move it around. I have messed around and dabbled with it like that before, though. But honestly, for me, I feel like the next major game that might use it as like a showcase piece will probably be either Dragon X Drive, which now we know that that's confirmed to be dropping out some point in the month of August. And on top of that, the game is only $20. So it's like, okay, so between that and Metroid Prime 4, those two will be like the showcase pieces for you to be able to use the Joy-Con supports and stuff like that for the Joy-Con mouse feature though. But you technically can use a standard USB mouse. Like the system does support that as well. So that's pretty cool just thinking about it like that. Let's go ahead and talk about the C button thing, because I think that's where the system shines the most. While yes, it's technically for free for the first year that the console is going to be out, and then after a year it's going to be tied to an NSO subscription based service though. But I really love the heck out of this. The fact that you're able to game share anything that you're playing and be able to showcase it off to any one of your friends, that's really cool to see it. Now yes, I think there could be some more improvements done to this, because while you're watching that footage, it's really choppy. Probably 5, 10, 15 frames per second, maybe 20 if you're lucky. Frames per second is what it looks like to be. I figured out that as long as you got that screen size small at the very bottom of your layout, like there's 3 different modes. You can do full screen. You can do one where it looks like normal, where the screens are at the bottom or just a little bit bigger. And then you have one that's like an expanded screen of the game that you're playing, but then your friends' icons are just a little bit smaller than normal. Depending on which one of those 3 modes you have set up, as long as it's just one of the 2, and you're not just putting one of your friends' games just really big up on your screen, it's all right. It does the system justice though, because you're not really going to be extensively looking at every little bit that they're playing though. But it's noticeable whenever you try to blow it up and they say, hey, look at this one little segment of gameplay I'm about to run through right now though. I do hope that Nintendo does some updates or something like that, to where if you don't want to prioritize the game that you're playing right now, and you just only want to prioritize the friend's screen, maybe that's a way how they can kind of beat around the bush to be able to up the frames per second that you're actually able to see from your other friend's game. That's like my only little tidbit up on it though. But the fact that you can actually, you know, have your camera be turned on and people can actually be able to see you, just only you, just your face, or blur out the background and then have the game playing directly behind you, that's really cool to be able to see all of that stuff. And, you know, I feel like finally Nintendo's kind of catching up with the Joneses. It's not necessarily anything you expect from Nintendo though, but it's just kind of nice to be able to see them actually kind of catching up to modern day times though. Take it as you will, but I mean, it's just kind of cool to be able to see that. And at least for people that don't normally use Discord, like I use Discord with a lot of my friends though, but there's some other friends that I have that they don't really use Discord, but using this game chat feature has been able to allow me to be able to catch up with some old friends and some old buddies. This is a lot more convenient to be able to do it through the system. You do have a built-in microphone on the system, and it actually does really well. Like, I mean, yeah, they got like some noise suppression and stuff like that. You can be almost halfway across the room as long as you're okay with anybody talking up on there. I mean, shoot, the thing picks up really well though. But also on the Switch 2 Pro controller as well, there is an audio jack on that, so you can do headphones like that in the traditional way as well. But I experimented around with my setup just a little bit more. You can even plug in like wireless headsets as long as they support like USB-C or even USB-A. As long as you plug it up into the dock and configure your settings, they work really well. Even along with the camera settings, you don't have to use the dedicated Nintendo Switch 2 camera, which I actually bought. I was just kind of curious about that. But you're actually able to use any other camera as well though. So as long as it supports USB-A or C and you plug it in the dock, hey, it all works right there. So I'm glad I'm able to use my wireless headset just to be able to use that to be able to voice chat with. So I think they knocked it out of the park in terms of the communication settings with the C button itself though. Now let's go ahead and jump over into the actual games themselves though, because man, I just like how a lot of these games that were originally for the Nintendo Switch 1, they managed to do free updates for games such like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, stuff for like Captain Toad Treasure Tractor, stuff that's a little bit more paid, like the DLC expansion, or not even DLCs, but stuff that you have to pay $10 for, or you have NSO expansion pack where it's actually included for free for like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, where you start to see some games that kind of ran at 30 FPS run naturally up to 60 FPS. Beautiful stuff like that. Some games got inclusion with some HDR like Mario Odyssey, and then obviously like games like Link's Awakening or like Echoes of Wisdom, where you might have some choppy frame rates in some sections. That's just completely smoothed out. I mean, shoot, Scarlet and Violet looks like a brand new game. I ain't gonna lie, to seeing that mess run at 60, like that's the way how the game should have been intended to run. I felt like Nintendo has been kind of, or not Nintendo per se, but I would say more so Game Freak. They were lying up until that point where they said, hey, we'll make the game better. It really didn't feel better until we finally got this patch for the Switch 2 though. So you have to buy a whole new system just to get the better performing version of that though. But even on games that hadn't had a dedicated patch out, I mean, you can even look at some games such as like Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity or the original Hyrule Warriors and stuff like that. And a lot of games like those had just been brute force with it, as long as the frame rates haven't been capped, so it's like an uncapped frame rate, they just naturally run a little bit better while you're playing it on the Switch 2. And I know while you're playing Switch 1 games, it's kind of like partially emulated, but partially also based upon some of the hardware stuff on the system itself. It's a really interesting little piece of hardware, just being able to play these Switch 1 games, where now this feels like at this point it makes the Switch 1 pretty much obsolete outside of a few games that you just can't play on this system, such as like the VR experience stuff with the cardboard and stuff, like the Nintendo Labo and stuff, where it's dedicated for that specific screen size of the Switch 1. So games that are specific like that, or I guess if they use the IR camera, then yeah, they might be permanently locked to the Switch 1. But anything else, at this point, you might as well just play it on the Switch 2, because it's going to run a lot of these games a lot more better, or at least a good chunk of them where they kept some stuff uncapped or unlimited. But some games, you know, they are locked into what it is, so it still will play like a Switch 1 game and stuff like that, though. Now, in terms of the games that I managed to go through and play on my system up until this point, I have quite a bit of stuff. I mean, I played around with the Tears of the Kingdom update. That's been really nice. Even the game Fantasy Life I, The Girl Who Steals Time, I had that on the Switch 1. They managed to have a Switch 2 update. You did have to pay like what, maybe $2 and something cents for you to get that. But I've been playing that as my single player experience, and it's so much better playing that as a smooth 60 FPS. And I like how there's like cross-platform and stuff, so I've been playing that with my buddies and stuff. Fast Fusion is a $15 game that's available on the eShop. Don't be sleeping on that. That's like literally F-Zero inspired. Hey, and there's a lot of different little modes up in there in terms of like what resolution you want it, the frames and all of that. So I'm like, hey, that's a really great game. So I've been putting some time up into that. And then obviously the big marquee, Mario Kart World. I already have a video talking about all of the stuff I really liked and enjoyed up in that review though. But regardless, that's a pretty sound game, and pretty much for anybody out there that bought the Nintendo Switch 2 unit itself, hey, they probably picked up for every 10 people that probably picked up a system, probably 8 people bought Mario Kart World, would have been bundled. Or you're someone like me who likes it to have it physical, so you bought the Switch 2 without it being bundled, and then you picked it up physically. Yes, I know that game's an $80 game. I'm not going to get up into that here in this video though, but regardless, I've been enjoying the heck out of that though. Now also, you did manage to have the inclusion of another NSO experience that added into the expansion pack with the GameCube Online, and I messed around and dabbled with that quite a bit, and that is really cool. I mean, shoot, even looking at a game like F-Zero GX with the widescreen support enabled up on it, this looks like a freaking remaster at this point though. All these GameCube games are going to look absolutely beautiful and stunning. It just kind of goes to show a testament to, if you have a great art style within any one of these games, they can tend to stand up for the strands of time though. I mean, even Soul Calibur 2, like that one looks really good as well. And then obviously we have Wind Waker and stuff. Just waiting for some more GameCube games to drop out. We have a whole slew of other games like Path of Radiance will eventually come. Mario Strikers, the good one, is coming. So yeah, so that's really great to see all of that in this system as well though. And then overall, I would just say that this Nintendo Switch 2 is just a better version of everything that we wanted to have in the Switch 1. This runs better, plays better, has a lot more accessibility up in there though. It just does everything the Switch 1 does, just better. It's not nothing incredibly crazy, nothing wow, like going from the DS to the 3DS where you had the inclusion of 3D or anything like that, or, you know, when you went from GameCube to Wii, where now you got motion controls, it doesn't do like that big major Nintendo gimmick. At the end of the day, it's still a hybrid system, so you're able to take it out on the go, play it as handheld, and then also be able to dock it on your big television screen TV and be able to play it in a dock experience at home. Hey, because of this nicer screen that's in the handheld form, I've been more motivated to actually take this out on the go, where I just be at my breaks on my work or something like that, just to be able to play the system. Like, shoot, even when I'm at work and stuff, and I showed it off to a few of my buddies, work buddies, they all got a little bit jelly and stuff like, dang, you were able to get that system. We're still stuck with the Switch 1 or something like that. Or I know another girl that has a kid and stuff, and she's thinking about getting this for her kid for probably for the holiday season, stuff like that, though. It's smart for Nintendo to be able to release this roughly around the summertime, get all of these units out the way, because now we're kind of running into a little bit of stock issues and stuff. Like, as soon as it goes up on Best Buy, Target, Walmart, now it's typically selling out fairly quick though. But hopefully everybody that's really been dying to get this closer to day one, or at least within launch month, are going to be able to have those systems, and then that way when the holiday season does come around, then you get more of those casual people that are going to just try to get stuff just around the holiday season though. So I think it's definitely a smarter play like that, because I can only imagine Nintendo dropped this out as like a holiday system, and then trying to have all the chaos of the diehards as well as casual people all trying to get the system all at once. It'll been a little bit more crazy, because those pre-orders with nothing to snuff at, and I felt like Nintendo did manage to stock up all of these systems up pretty well, at least at the midnight launch and stuff like that. I talked about the midnight launch in that first Czarcast podcast where the system actually managed to drop out, so do check that out if you want to kind of see like the overall raw impressions of like how it felt whenever I first got the Nintendo Switch 2 system, because that line was wrapped all the way around that Best Buy building, and it took me a better part of an hour to kind of get my hands on that system though. But overall, Nintendo Switch 2 is just a better overall running Nintendo Switch 1. I still have my Switch OLED. That's the Splatoon 3 edition. It's still sitting. It's still connected to my TV just in case I wanted to go through and dabble with playing some other games I just don't have downloaded to this system, because you do have to have a micro SD express card to be able to download and put more additional games up on your system that don't naturally fit within the, you know, almost 256 gigs that they managed to kind of give you with this console right out the gate though. It's able to store quite a bit though, but if you were to move every one of your Switch 1 games, DLCs, or anything else included onto this system through those system transfers, that can fill up really quick. And the SD express cards, they're equivalent to an SSD, like what we're accustomed to in the Xbox consoles and the PlayStation consoles respectively though. There ain't nothing to snuff at. They're pretty expensive. I do manage to have a 1 terabyte SD card in here, an express card, because that way I can hold all of my Switch 1 games if I need to, along with any other Switch 2 games, because the way how they're going with the game key cards as versus the standard cards, a lot of those third-party games, a lot of them are going game key cards, because it seems like you only have a 64 gigabyte cartridge that's Nintendo's actually supplying to people. I mean, yes, Nintendo is probably going to put all of their first-party games, unless it's like a smaller game like a Drag X Drive that's going to be digital only. They're putting most of their stuff as like physical releases though. But then the third parties, unless you're something like a Cyberpunk, then you're probably going to opt into doing the game key cards a little bit more likely. And there is one other special cartridge out there. It's technically also 64 gigabyte cartridge, like what was like Room Factory, where they put like a Switch 1 and a Switch 2 and they shoved it all on that cart, so you can stick that cartridge into both those two systems though. But outside of that, that's the only little disappointing thing. So if you're a physical collector, they're trying to wing you a little bit more into this digital age. You might watch yourself picking up more games digitally off of the eShop though. And shoot, I didn't even mention about the eShop. The eShop is so much better on this system right now though, because it's smooth. They give you recommendations and stuff like that. I mean, it's not nearly as choppy and gives you like a whole bunch of random old crap or shovelware stuff that we're accustomed to with the Switch 1 eShop as it is now. When they first originally launched with the Switch 1, the eShop was really good. Like, there wasn't really anything bad with it though. But as time went on and more titles started coming out up on this thing, and as you know, Switch 1 started to catch fire with a lot of people, the eShop started become a really bad experience just trying to go through and surf on it. At times I would just pull up the actual, Nintendo website and tell it to download straight to it though. So yeah, so there's a lot of good stuff within the Switch 2. Some things I feel like they can naturally improve upon though, but overall I think this is a really great solid console. Just opening out the gate though, we're just waiting on just more games to come out that's exclusive to this, starting with Donkey Kong Bonanza, which is only like right around the corner from now though. So that's another highly anticipated game I'm really looking forward to as well though. But y'all gotta let me know down in the comment section down below, what all do you think about the Nintendo Switch 2? Have you been able to go through and download a lot of games up on here and been able to go through and experience a lot of different stuff? Because I've been enjoying the heck out of this. There's been going through old Switch 1 games, the exclusive Switch 2 games or Switch 2 editions up in here, and then everything else in between, messing around with game chat and stuff and all the accessibility and stuff. Because like, shoot, even the game chat stuff, like you're able to actually do text, voice to text, which, you know, for people out there that are a little bit naughty, yes, they capture those words out there too. I'm just saying though. But this is a big, massive leap for Nintendo though. And, you know, you don't necessarily feel these leaps so much so when you move from like a PS4 to PS5 or Xbox One to Xbox Series X and S, because we're starting to hit the, you know, the limits of what you can be able to do graphically. So at least with this one console, it feels like a natural good upgrade that was well warranted and well needed since the days that we've been kind of talking about, oh shoot, is a Nintendo Switch Pro even going to be a thing though? But yeah, let me know what all you thought about this new system, whether or not you picked it up, you're looking forward to it, or any other kind of questions, comments, or concerns. Leave those down in the comment section down below. But that's going to basically do it in terms of my overall review for the Nintendo Switch 2. A great, phenomenal system. Doesn't, you know, do anything super crazy in terms of like that traditional Nintendo factor though. But hey, they're catching up with the Joneses, and that's all that matters for me personally though. But yeah, that's going to do it for today's video though. So if you really like this, make sure you hit that like button, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and that bell to stay up to date on all things video game related I feel like talking about and discussing though. So remember y'all, until our video I make next, see y'all.